Mayuresh Joshi of Angel Broking is also with us. Mayuresh, from the list of mid-cap stocks that I just named, is there anything that interests you now that one can still continue to buy in this market?
Afternoon, Sonia. So clearly, I think Dishman, in terms of expected performance, specifically in its vitamin D business over the next 2 years, the numbers are expected to stack up extremely well. However, I think in terms of core valuations from the run-up that we've probably witnessed in the stock in the past few months, we think it's fairly valued at this point of time. So I think we had recommended the stock way below that 180, 170 odd mark. So clearly, I think investors would probably invest into the stock, hold on to the stock. In terms of GM Breweries, I think we do not directly cover the stock, but clearly I think as a peer comparison, I think Radico Khaitan is something that we're extremely optimistic about. State hikes is something that we expect, specifically in terms of liquor prices going up over the next few quarters, and if the volume growth which the company has posted over the last few months and quarters sustains, I think the valuation gap that it has probably got with USL probably focusing more in terms of profitability than volume growth, I think market share gains are here to stay. So I think Radico Khaitan is something that I've spoken about, and I'll still be very optimistic about over the next few years.
Okay, some more stocks where we have seen intraday moves. City Cable is the one where there's a big move taking place intraday. If you pull out the chart, you will see. So the City Cable stock has looked good, but apart from that, there are a couple of stocks on the downside as well, where we have seen some big activity, and one of them is Karnataka Bank. Of course, that stock has been weak through the day, but some more losses over there. Then you have NCL Industries, that's also trading lower. Merck Electronics, that's also on the lower side. So there are some stocks where there are some losses. Mr. Sen, a word on Jet Airways. Crude continues to seek lower levels. Is this still a stock that you'll bet on at current levels?
Yes, Anuj, because I said that about a couple of days back, that let it correct, maybe to a level of 750, 55, and I think it has come to that level. And maybe by expiry, I won't be surprised to see the share again moving back to 780. So this is a buy call, but again, if you just go with a stop loss of 745, that 1%, 1.5%, I don't think that you can make money in these kind of. You need to have a positional view, set a target of maybe 778 by expiry. So that is likely to be seen. So I'm keeping my positive stance on Jet Airways. Yeah.
Okay. Alright, so positive stance on Jet Airways. Well, I think we're counting down to close. Yes, we have only 2.5 minutes to go. So let's tell you about the market today. Very volatile day of trade. We did see more than a 150 point intraday swing on the Nifty, more than a 550 point intraday swing on the Sensex, and give and take everything, the market still closes in the red with the biggest cuts coming in on the mid-cap space. The stock of the day today clearly has been Infosys on the upside. Stellar performance by the company this quarter. And in fact, Infosys goes home with gains of almost 5%. But on the flip side, you have a lot of the other heavyweights that have succumbed to selling pressure. The Bank Nifty has been one big loser today, down about 1.7%. Names like Axis Bank, SBI, IndusInd Bank, Yes Bank, all down 1.5 to 4%. In fact, banks making new 52-week lows include names like Axis Bank, that's now sub 400 rupees quite decisively. Tata Steel, Tata Motors, a couple of other names in the red. BHEL and L&T also make new 52-week lows, and so do some of these telecom names like Idea and Bharti. Reliance has given up some of its sheen that it had yesterday, down about 1.5% for Reliance. But on the flip side, apart from Infosys, there was some action that you saw in the pharmaceutical names. So Lupin goes home with gains of 3%, Dr. Reddy's up about 1%, coming off its 52-week low, and Cipla up almost about 1%. Paint stocks have been very resilient in this market, so Asian Paints goes home with a 2.5% gain. But Anuj, give and take everything, you still get that uncomfortable feeling in the market, right? Because, I mean, there's so much volatility and you never know which way it could swing.
Oh yes, 30 points is Infosys' contribution. The Nifty ends down 30 points, and 30 point plus is the contribution of Infosys today. So, and again, you'll see in the numbers tomorrow, only Infosys with 1,000 crore delivery based buying, no other stock with any delivery based buying. So that quite clearly still remains the concern, the lopsided nature of this market. But today's big talking point, apart from Infosys, of course, was the big underperformance in the Bank Nifty. That ends down 1.7%. This is not a small cut for the Bank Nifty, almost 300 points. And again, the mid-cap index down about 1.2%. So let's talk about some of the mid-caps where we saw big cuts in trade today. first, not really a mid cap, but non-index large cap, Jindal Steel and Power, we saw about 8% slide on that one. Ratan India was down about 6%, again one of the erstwhile outperformers. Subex was down 5%, JP Associates down 5%. Stock of the year has been IDBI Bank, that's now down 4% today, but for this year it's down 25%. So we're talking about first fortnight of the year, and the stock has lost quarter of its market cap. That's IDBI Bank, which is down quite a bit. India Bulls Real Estate, Shree Renuka, Bajaj Hindustan, all of them were down quite a bit. Jet Airways corrected today, down about 3% in trade. Federal Bank was lower, 3.5%. On the gaining side, Marks and Pharma, it started the day with another 10% downtick, but towards the end of trade, the stock moved up and closed 3% higher. So that's the overall market trend. Cash volumes of 18,000 crore, F&O volume of about 3.2 lakh crores. Mr. Tulsian, a word on Marks and Pharma, if you are tracking the volatile moves over the last couple of days.
See, Anuj, actually there has been news of this Goa plant, coming on the scanner of UK for the good manufacturing practices and all that. And as such, I don't think that this is really has been the comforting stock. In fact, two stocks I've been seeing, Morpan Lab and Marks and Pharma. Yes. They have all been very hot favorite of the retail traders. If you just ask them, sometimes I wonder that they think that there are only two companies, in the pharma space which exist on the stock exchanges, and they don't get to know the names of the other companies also. So if you have such kind of retail participation with shaky fundamentals on both, so naturally you need to have caution. Maybe this Goa plant could be an excuse, which we have seen yesterday stock hitting 20% lower circuit, but today I think maybe during daytime it has tried to move up by about 8 to 10% as well, but I'm seeing now that it is just up by about maybe 2 or 3%, so I won't be touching the stock and won't advise buying into such stocks. Yeah.
Okay. Sudarshan, what should the strategy for a trader be tomorrow after the kind of volatility that you've seen today?
Oh, well, at least for today, Sonia, your question gives me the nightmares. Really. I think, see, let's see, it's much easier to say, and it's a sensible suggestion, don't take intraday trades unless you are sure of the direction. In the morning at 11 AM, the direction seemed to be up, and see what happened. There were sharp declines after that. So at this point, intraday trading is probably not a good idea. Now, if the Nifty opens higher tomorrow, and there is always a possibility it could, then I would say that 74.50 is some kind of a short-term low in place, and you could be looking at long positions only in the Nifty, nowhere else.
Okay. Mayuresh, how does one approach Axis Bank? You saw 2 days of buying, and after that a big resumption of downtick again. In fact, it's now completed a 40% correction.
Well, yes, Anujan, it's been a massive correction onto the bank with expectations of what probably will come through in Q3. Now the entire right on the street is probably some repetition of Q2 coming through with ARC sales and probably what happens with asset quality, and that's been the sole mantra, as Mr. Tulsian was pointing out. So clearly I think asset quality issues is something that has been plaguing a lot of banks, Axis Bank included, because there's been exposure towards a lot of corporates and SMEs within the lending book itself. So consciously I think they've started increasing their retail pie, and the retail pie is actually growing at a very decent pace. However, probably in my opinion, again, I think the earnings might be soft for a lot of these banks, at least for this quarter and the next, when the recognition of these assets probably start coming onto the P&L accounts. But clearly I think if you have a larger time horizon, I think the earnings over the next few quarters should start stabilizing, and clearly I think once the credit growth resumes over the next few quarters, I think these banks are in a much better position to ride that credit growth along with their branch network, and the capital adequacy gives them the levers of leverage benefits coming through. So clearly I think the fall has been very disappointing. The stock has underperformed, but clearly I think we still maintain our optimism, though our earnings from an FY16 and 17 perspective will get down in the weeks to come.
Okay, Mr. Tulsian, we haven't spoken about it through the show, but the weakest stock this month actually has been Idea Cellular, down 17% now for the month. Any temptation to buy the stock now?
See, maybe trading temptation can make you to go for it, but I don't think that fundamentals, because Anuj, when we have been talking about the competition, which will start building up maybe with entry of Reliance Jio, the kind of capex which we see, this is spectrum auctions will keep happening, suddenly you do not know about the clear cut of the government policies also. taking this huge capex and shrinking margin, I don't think that why one should even look to these kind of, because telecom has now is worse than a commodity business, you know, I would call it in that way. So maybe a trading bump, you can look for a 5, 6, 7 rupees bump, you know, you are going to see a level of 125 or so maybe, you know, but again, not on a fundamental basis. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, we'll have to wrap up with this session on that note. But thanks for joining us and taking us through the last 1 hour of what has been quite a rocky session once again. We'll slip into a short break, but on the other side, we'll tell you what the street is expecting from the two big numbers that are coming out tomorrow.